Hey everyone, welcome to the Leader's Edge, your path to personal and leadership growth. I'm your host, Steve Steele, alongside my co-host and partner in leadership, Ernie DeCumos. As certified speakers, coaches, and corporate facilitators, we're dedicated to bringing you powerful principles to fuel your leadership journey and personal growth. Now, whether you're an entrepreneur or just starting out as a new leader, taking the reins, or a seasoned pro looking to refine your skills, well, this show is for you. We'll be diving deep into personal growth strategies to help you strengthen your mindset and leadership abilities. But before we jump in, a huge shout out to all of our amazing listeners. Thank you so much for joining us each and every week and your support. We wouldn't be here without it. So thank you so much. Now, let's get down to business and help you unlock your full potential. Hey, Ernalita partner. How are you doing? How are you doing today? Beautiful.
Oh, I get a beautiful today.
Yeah, I threw the beautiful in there at the end there. Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
How are you?
I don't know how to respond to that, Mr. Handsome Steele. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Hello, everyone. This is your co-host, Ernalita, also known as Ernie O. the Kumos. Partner, are you excited for our guest today? This one is a little different.
Yeah, this was great because I got to last year meet him for the first time in person, and it was wonderful, wonderful. We sat at a coffee shop, remember? And we talked and talked and talked. It was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I cannot wait for our guests to hear this guy.
Awesome. You mean our audience?
Yeah. Did I say guests? I mean our audience.
We're talking today as radio show hosts. We are talking today as. Can I introduce him, partner? This man is a very good friend of mine. Okay. So our guest this morning is a first-generation Filipino-American with proud Kapampangan heritage roots. He knows how to cook. Although born in San Francisco, he considers the Central Valley home. With Stockton as his home community, with Stockton as his home community. His identity is enriched by the diverse regions of the Bay Area and Northern California, forming a unique perspective that he brings to his work in public service and healthcare. Starting his career at the University of California, San Francisco, also known as UCSF Medical Center, he gained 6 years of oncology experience, mastering Six Sigma LEAN principles to elevate patient care and advocate for innovative healthcare solutions at several oncologic service lines at UCSF's Helen Diller Comprehensive Cancer Center. That's a long name. His role as an operational improvement specialist and patient advocate included navigating complex insurance barriers, coordinating and improving care for patients from rural areas, and ensuring patients had clear access to essential health information. In 2021, I'm not going to say his name, he transitioned to South Stockton's nonprofit sector to continue his advocacy for health equity and marginalized communities as a co-developer of the Equity in COVID and Health Outcomes, also known as ECHO program at Little Manila Rising. He has helped shape responses to COVID-19 while mentoring emerging health advocates. His expertise spans grant writing, program management, and urban forestry and initiatives. Driven to address long-standing inequities, he is acting as deputy director, continuing to play a development role and supporting program leaders to tackle systemic issues in health, community redevelopment, and economic mobility sustainability. Everyone, please help me welcome my great friend, Mr. Kevin Sunga, to the green room.
What's up, everyone? Oh my gosh. Well, you powered through that, Ernie. Thank you.
Tongue twisting, long, but very credible bio. Okay. I love it.
Thank you.
So I gotta know, Kevin, what's Kapampangan?
Kapampangan.
What is that?
No, what is that? Kapampangan, I mean, with the Philippines, there's so many dialects, so many different, even peoples within the region. So Kapampangan, which is a people located in the zone just above Manila, the capital, about 3 hours north. it's a province of the Philippines. And so, as Ernie
Oh,
mentioned, she was like, "Oh, food, like they're good cooks. We're known to be very good cooks."
is that
So,
right?
Yes.
yep, yep. So,
Wow. So is that anywhere close to where we're going to be going, Ernie, in Philippines when we go to December? Is it
Yes.
really?
Yeah,
Good
an
food. Good
hour or
food.
two travel. Well, Kevin is in America, so we can't go there, partner.
Okay.
I'll go with you. How about that?
Oh,
Oh,
that'd be great.
yes.
That'd
There you
be
go.
great.
We'll link it together.
Wow.
But please visit. Yeah, I
Awesome.
encourage you to visit.
Absolutely. Kevin, thank you so much for being here today. We greatly appreciate it. This
Of course.
today we're talking about everything intersects in life,
Yeah,
and we're talking about turning deficits into assets.
yeah.
So, Kevin, I really want you to kind of start out, if you don't mind, a little bit about your story, where you came from. I know that you're a Native American because you're born in San Francisco.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Mhm.
tell me a little bit about how your story started and what really has brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I mean, as Ernie mentioned in the beginning, like I am a mosaic. I call it a mosaic of the Bay Area. I mean, there's so many
Mm,
different cultures and pockets within the Bay Area, and that's all the surrounding cities that touch the Bay in San Francisco. So Vallejo, Pacifica, Napa, Daly City, and all those places shape me in different ways. And you mentioned, like for me, finding home here in Stockton. Filipino American, so being Filipino, like education was everything. It was
yes.
seen as the key to success and investment for the future, and I personally stand by that. I was very fortunate and very privileged to go through a private Catholic school system. But what that has led me to understand is how service plays a role in life. So for me, my faith has always been centered around service, public service, love, and specifically love that does not harm others. And that's what really
Mm,
drew me into public service. And so I got into student government, led church retreats, and stayed involved in anything that could, help others. And so, yeah, I went off to get my degree at Dominican University of California in Marin, and I studied political science and pre-law. Had dreams of becoming a lawyer or, working in congressional office, you know, but life kind of took a different turn. I ended up working for or interning at the community department of corrections and rehabilitation as a health policy analyst. And I think the biggest thing I got from there was my first mentor. Just how you're mentoring future generations. Uh,
mhm.
that mentor for me told me that if you want to work at the top, you need to understand like every rung of the ladder, and that's how my leadership approach of empathy and understanding every role has really changed and transformed.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. And I do agree with that as a Filipino American. Well, I'm
Yeah.
Filipino American citizen.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
do agree that education is huge for us. It's like a pin that you will have if you have graduated on such a high note. But I love what you mentioned there. Yes, you have the education, but education is one factor. But you learned how to lead, and the leadership style that you have learned is start from the very bottom, learn your way, and climb the ladder to the top, right? And
Yeah.
also love and love that does not harm others.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm
Yeah.
curious, Kevin, like where did that stem from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Love that does not harm others.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's there's a book called All About Love by Bell Hooks.
Mm,
That very definition comes from that book. And I'm married, so my wife, she also
mhm.
works in a very similar line of work. We both work in social justice nonprofit. But we made an agreement, or more so, she was like, "Hey, really encourage you to read this book because in this life we always say like, really like I love you, and in
Yeah,
some contexts it could be empty, and
yeah,
so I really had to find that definition of what love is for myself, and so I turned to the book, and I think that definition really encapsulates like my journey, is that love does not harm others, and so that's where that comes from. Like it was really an encouragement between me and my wife to set a standard of what love is for our marriage, like before our wedding day. So I think that was like very powerful. But then it also drives the work that I do today. I
mm,
work in, as you mentioned, like sort of this, like, this ladder. And is it cool if I share a little bit about like the experiences, how I got into like
yeah.
just a little bit? Yeah. to kind of give context and like, in working in healthcare. And it also relates. So yeah, I worked at UCSF in 2015. And from there, I really took in what my mentor said. So I worked front desk, became coordinator, became lead, became front desk supervisor, then practice supervisor. And where the love stemmed from there is that it wasn't just a job, that I was part of everyone's story. And I also had a responsibility to, to serve. Because, one misscheduled appointment for someone in oncology is a cancer practice for cancer patients could mean life or death for them.
Yes.
And so that was my love being exercised there. And so, yeah, and then that really extended, into work I do today, working with marginalized communities, like the communities that need it the most. And so, worked in healthcare, was really cool, then pivoted to more social justice, so Little Manila Rising in Stockton, which focuses on historic preservation, community health, environmental justice. And here, like, yeah, I could share a little bit more about that a little later, of how it connects to today, but the through line is community. And so my love is for the community.
You said something, Kevin, that really struck me. Two things, really.
Yeah.
You said that when you were working in the oncology part of things, that you were part of everyone's story.
Yeah.
And then and I love that because to do that, you have to make connection, right?
Yes.
And so I want to tag that with this. You also said that felt like you were an empathetic leader.
Yeah.
And those two things have to intersect.
Yeah.
Right. Those two things have the love, being part of a person's story, and having the empathy and leadership. And so many times today, our leaders don't have the empathy they should have with their employees. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? What that really meant to you?
Yeah, I mean, what can be seemingly a lost art nowadays is connection with people. I mean, we're really caught up. I mean, like, it's so blessed to have so many different kinds of communications to stay in touch with each other. And we have these platforms today to really broaden message, to really reach people. But then there's also, of course, the flip side to that, and it's just like divisiveness, there's fragmentation of messaging. So to me, what it looked like was being able to listen. And I think, and that sounds so simple, but for me, it was a matter of sitting down, really paying attention in the one-on-one, and really listening to the patient's stories. And how that's translated in my leadership is I exercise that very same practice with my staff, and I lead with curiosity. Because because if I'm coming to them with my stories and really just boom, 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 then, am I really giving the agency for the other person, for the individual to really feel heard and to feel seen and to feel connected? And so, yeah, it's manifested in both ways, in me doing my one-on-ones with my staff, creating that connection with them so we build trust, but also with the patients, just knowing that I'm there for them every day. So yeah, in ways, Steve, they're interchangeable. So it's really translated perfectly in that way.
Yeah. There's something that you wanted, like that. There's something that I read on your bio earlier, as far as you were part of the initiative when it comes to COVID-19 awareness, and I know how difficult that is.
Yeah.
Right. In that time, because I was in it too, and I love the idea that you and I coincide working in oncology, knowing the struggles that patients do face.
Yeah.
That you transitioning to Little Manila Rising, and then being that leader, leading in uncertain times. Like, what was the thoughts that were going through your mind? How challenging that is, or was it ever a challenge for you, Kevin, when you were going through that?
It was a huge challenge. So the reason why I came to Little Manila is because I was burnt out from the pandemic. So anyone that was, that's lived through that time, that has experienced it, you're not alone. Like there was immense pressure, for healthcare to respond with limited resources. Yeah. And I also had to be honest to myself and really take a step back of recognize my mental health. But the beautiful thing though is it led me to coming true and aligning with the path that's always been in the back of my mind, and it's continuing to working with community. And so that's how I was able to meet you, Ernie. That's how I'm able to meet you, Steve, is that, even though it was a challenge at one point, that, it led me to being where I am here today. And it was a challenge. But I think the beautiful part is similarly how I did at the Cancer Center to connect with stories. I was able to meet South Stockton residents. I was able to meet our leaders who are, doing the work and give more context to that. And it actually gave more purpose and more detail of what I believe public service to be. So kind of ties in with what we talked about with the turning deficits to assets. It was a challenge, but it transformed into something much larger for myself. So yeah.
I love that. I know we have a little bit of time before commercial, but would you consider that as like an awakening moment for you?
Oh yeah, that was transformative for me. That was so pivotal. Like COVID-19 unveiled a lot. I think, being indoors, a lot of self-reflection happened.
Yes.
But yeah, and so you kind of sit with that. But I think me moving to Stockton, me working with this community, working in nonprofit, is more of like the radicalized side of service for myself. So yes, it's been transformative, and I wouldn't have any other way.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Kevin. We will need to take a quick break. Kevin just shared his journey as to how he started from the very bottom and climbed his way to the top. When we return, we will talk about tools that he has utilized over the years and has used to grow himself today. We will be right back to the Leader's Edge.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leader's Edge. I'm Steve Steele with your co-host, Ernie DeCumos, and our special guest today, Kevin Sunga. Thank you, Kevin, for that first part of our first segment there about telling us about where you started and how you got started and
Of course.
where you've moved in your leadership journey. And I was very intrigued a little bit about the part where you were talking about COVID-19 and how that was really a transformation for you when you were moving into the next step of your life, next step of your leadership journey. And so through that process, though, Kevin, I know that and people are always looking for facts. They're always looking for something to help them get to the next level, to get to the next piece. But through your experience, Kevin, there are some tools that you have shared with us about how we take those deficits in our life and turn them into assets in our life. Can you speak to a little bit about what those tools and what they did for you and how you utilize those tools in your process?
Yeah, totally. So what I'm finding that I do in my role today is actually sharing a lot of my personal story through my work. And so, with that comes grant writing. So I'm a grant writer. So grants are just opportunities we apply for a nonprofit, to get funding. With our programs, we also have to report impact, and we also share community stories and advocacy. So as I mentioned earlier, Steve, like I work with historically marginalized communities, and it's easy and even automatic to lean into their struggles and trauma and make a headline out of it. So I want to do something interactive. So let's try something. And here's two ways to tell the same story. So the first example, Kathy from Southside is a product of the war on drugs. Her parents were addicted to heroin, grew up on the streets. Now she's gotten a scholarship to Harvard, her shot at breaking the cycle of poverty and building generational wealth for her family. The second example, Kathy, a star soccer athlete, student body president, and honor student, just earned a scholarship to Harvard, bringing her one step closer to her dream of becoming the top doctor addressing women's health. So those two examples, Ernie and Steve, like which one felt better to you and why?
Good question. The one that felt better to me was the second example, but the one I'm most interested in is how the first example, how they overcame it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So provide some context to the second part. Yeah.
I do agree. I would second partner Steele because of the fact that a lot of times it's the underdog stories that gives us that interest, right?
Yeah.
So I love the first story and would love to learn, okay, well, everyone is there. It's more relatable. It resonates with a lot more people.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. It's providing context. And so, these are just some of the examples of, of what was mentioned of deficit-based framing and also asset-based framing. And those do play a role, in our stories. So they're not inherently, more worse than the other. So with deficit-based framing, it spotlights everything missing or wrong in Kathy's life, but it also gives insight to her journey. But asset-based framing is highlighting her strengths, accomplishments, and potentials. So, that's a tool that I've been using for myself, and how it kind of led to me talking about myself and informing what you just read in the beginning, Ernie. So in social justice spaces, we talk a lot about ethical storytelling. So, and we're careful about how we share other stories. But the thing is, we also have to practice the same responsibility when we tell our own stories. So, let's revisit the story, like really quickly. So Ernie and Steve, I'll ask another question again. What is like one or two things you remember from the intro, like of my experience? And it's hard because you and I know each other very well. Like we've been in spaces so many times. But what is like one or two things that you remember about my story?
I remember you were born in California and you were raised in San Francisco. I knew that. Right?
Yeah.
So my focus on is transition and change, which I resonate a lot. Yes, you were born in San Francisco, but you transitioned to San Joaquin County, and then from your career as well, from healthcare, which is a service, but at the same time, you transitioned to nonprofit, which being exposed to both, I feel like nonprofit is more of a challenge. And when you're in nonprofit, it challenges you as an individual. And you can explain as to why that is.
Yeah, no, exactly. So working in nonprofit like has its own challenges. And in that way, it's challenging in that it kind of fits or plugs into a realm of service for community. So, in between everything, you have government, you also have philanthropy, and even within nonprofit, there's direct service, which is more of like charitable works, which we all need. So like soup kitchens, stuff like that, clothing drives. And you have others that work on the advocacy realm. So even in there, there's there's differences within the nonprofit field. And so, and you work with really again, like with marginalized communities who face so much historic disinvestment that sometimes cynicism and pessimism is where it leads. And it's up to us to to also introduce the hope part of it. And and that's part of ethical storytelling. Yes, Steve.
I'm kind of curious, Kevin. You in the two examples you gave us about Kathy, first of all, growing up in a poverty situation, there's drugs and all that kind of thing. And the second part, she was a soccer player, and she went on to do greater things, top of her class, all of that. Kevin, when you tell these stories, does the environment in which you tell them make a difference? I mean, if you're telling it to an environment, let's say you take the second example and you're sharing that story in an environment where they can't relate.
Yeah.
how does that work? Am I
Yeah.
making any sense in that?
No, you are making sense of it. I think like in a perspective, like I think the goal, so with the deficit, so they both play a role, as I mentioned, right?
Right.
So with deficit-based framing, like I feel like asset-based framing, to create asset-based framing, you also have to understand the deficit-based framing. And I think a tangible example is my story. So, I shared a lot about like my work accomplishments, but what I didn't share with you is I grew up in a separated divorce household. I became independent at a young age, figure out things as my parents navigate the relationship. Family went bankrupt in 2008 during the financial crisis. My mom suffered a hemorrhagic stroke, in 2018. So there's a lot underneath all that, but the power that I'm leaning into with that is, like with moving so often, I became adaptable. And that's why I'm able to support so many different issues and spaces now. That being independent at a young age made me a doer. And I could dream as big as a vision and also map it out, the steps that, and figure out a game plan of how to get that done. And so, yes, the context does matter, Steve, of where you're at. And it definitely is knowing your audience, because if you tell a marginalized community deficit-based framing, then it's just stuff that they've heard all the time.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't have any way of getting out. They don't know what to do to get out of it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's the thing I want to break down here. I want to unpick a little bit, is how do they get past that? They're in a deficit situation. How do they mentally move themselves? How did you do it, Kevin? How did you mentally move yourself from where you were with your situation with your family and move to where you are, brother? Because people want to know, how do they get out of those kind of situations?
Yeah, Steve, like Steve and Ernie, it's been a real reflection period for me. What I've learned in my journey is that to grow, you have to understand yourself, you have to heal parts of yourself, and you have to grow alongside others. So for myself, my personal journey, I'm diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. For me, I've had fears of, and so it's a weird thing because I had no social anxiety or public speaking fears before that. So it was a real tougher thing for me to really like come to terms with. But overall, what I did was I listened to my body. I'm also a huge advocate for men's mental health. I also got a therapist, a lot of the internal work, and I also got a professional coach. So just like Leaders Edge is providing mentorship, got a professional coach. And if there's something that I had to plug, there's a program called Positive Quotient Intelligence, which stands. Yeah, you use PQ? Yeah.
We're familiar with it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I've used it, and it's been transformative for me in dealing stress and recentering myself to doing one-on-one. And honestly, the most underrated form of healing for ourselves, frankly, is being in community with each other. So it's exercising
I agree.
with people, friendships, enjoying third spaces. I play board games. I joined a baseball league. I joined a choral, and
a choral
in isolation. Yeah, I sing. So
you will not see me there, but yes, love that. I'm the only Filipina who does not sing. Well, I sing, but I don't think it will be a good sound. I love that.
That's beautiful.
I do wanted to reiterate the three things, though, Kevin, if you don't mind, the three things that you had advised us to do. So, please grow yourself. Yeah.
So just guess the takeaway is to grow, you have to understand yourself, heal parts of yourself, and just being open in that willingness to be vulnerable, and also to grow alongside others. So forming a community, whatever it looks like, and better yet, community that's surrounded by love that does not harm. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Kevin, that's beautiful. And for those people that say, well, I can't afford a counselor, I can't afford a coach, get a good book. Start with something on self-help. I really love IFS, which is Internal Family Systems, and they do amazing work. But start with something. If you're in that kind of situation, if you're stuck in your mind, if you're stuck in your brain, and you don't know how to move forward, start with small baby steps. It's like I said 1,000 times, you cannot see a goal from step 33. Or from step one. You have to take each step at a time, and then you'll get to that.
Yeah.
But take those small baby steps, right? Even if you don't know where to go, do something.
Yeah.
Do something to help you move forward. Get with, like you said, get with community, get with friends, get with people that you know that surround yourself with those people that can help you move even a small part. Just start something, right?
Exactly. Like better, like join a book club, like community plus, atomic habits. Like,
Oh,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah, I
I would
love that.
definitely say like show grace to yourself. If you're starting a new practice, like start small. I mean, that will compound. And you know that more than anyone. Like, start with 2 pages a day, like one piece of learning that you write down.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
that's where it begins, is the openness of being willing to learn and to learn more about
Yes.
yourself and how you operate. Because the self OS system is stronger than any Mac or Microsoft device. Like it,
That's right.
The
That's right,
self
brother.
operating system is stronger
System, right.
than Mac or Windows or what have you. I wanted to go back and I love the teaching. So basically, what I'm hearing is
yeah.
start small, do
Mhm.
it consistently, and it does compound. But the three things, I want to go back to the three things because I think this is very powerful, and it is your story, understanding yourself, healing parts of yourself, and growing alongside others.
Yeah.
When you understand yourself,
Mhm.
what was the findings when you were in that journey, learning more about yourself, understanding, like you said, you mentioned,
Yeah.
you moved a lot when you were young, and then from that you became adaptable. Can you please share that journey with us, Kevin? Because I think it's gonna be helpful to the listeners when
Yeah.
instead of being consumed with the deficit stuff about
Yeah.
us, you're changing that perspective and using it as an asset.
Yeah, sure
Yeah.
thing. I'm happy to share. Yeah, so I mean, it's the flip side. It's the lessons. I think that's what life is. Is like
Okay.
I just took the lessons from it, and I've transformed them. And so, I mean, I know I spoke a little bit about the realizations about being independent. With my family, with my family's bankruptcy, with the financial crisis, it was a cautionary tale for myself, of what to look for, and being intentional as I work towards building generational wealth.
Mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm.
and I mean, admittedly, like, yeah, it's very unfortunate. I know many Americans, like face that. I know we're not the solo story, but it really recentered myself in that way. I think the biggest one for me had to do with health, just given my background. So,
Yeah.
I mentioned that my mom's stroke, she's currently in a facility. She needs 24, around the clock care for her healing and condition. But my mom's stroke also pushed me to become the fiercest health advocate. Um,
Mm,
so again, it is more empathy, and it allowed me to be more
Mm.
empathetic for people who are, for disabled, folks who are, that are experiencing disabilities, to understand the barriers that they're facing with the healthcare system. And so that
yeah.
even leaned in more for me, and to be a better advocate in many ways. So yeah, I think if you want to know more, let me know. But yeah, like I think that one was a real paramount one for me, was when my mom unfortunately had her stroke, and how that
Yeah.
transformed
Mm,
in me in terms of service for my community.
yeah.
Yeah. There are so many ways. Oh, go ahead, Ernie. You have a question to
I
follow up?
do I do have a
Okay.
follow-up question, and I feel like
Yeah,
this is tugging in my heart right now. Um, with all your achievements, Kevin, and I want people to hear this, with all your achievements, with all the knowledge that you have acquired today and is practicing today, was there
yeah.
ever a failure in your life?
I mean, there was definitely a lot. Yeah, I know.
I
Yeah,
didn't think about that one.
yeah. Let me think about that for a lot. Um, I mean, there was a lot that I wasn't happy with, like working, and it was also a very self thing. And so for
Yes.
people to know, I'm actually a people pleaser, and that's
Mm,
sort of like a survival thing, on my behalf.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for me, I'm a
Mhm.
yes person because I'm a doer, and that really bit me in the butt. So,
Mhm.
I didn't know my own boundaries. I was overcommitting myself, to certain, I was disappointing people in that way. And I couldn't lean into my self-confident leadership because I was operating off of other people's OS and not myself. And so that I would say and when I kind of generalized the failure or the area of opportunity, and that was years long type of experience, which led to my burnout. So that was one of the biggest lessons for me is to really, I know it sounds cliche, but to stay true. And I mean, I think that's where it really comes to, understanding yourself. Don't work solo, have thought partners along the journey to help you do these things. Yeah.
Absolutely. I am so much in tune to that, having collaboration in your life, because that's how you really find solutions, right?
Yeah.
It really is having those people that you can bounce things off, because we all know that, the people we hang around with, is very, very important. And if we hang out with the wrong people, you're going to make sometimes wrong choices. Hanging out with good people, hanging out with people that can be mentors to you to help you work through those processes are so much better.
Yep, exactly. That's what I believe. Life is a series of choices and consequences, and then you do it all over again.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. I definitely agree. And the reason why I throw in the failure question is I love that you brought up, and I love the transparency that you've shared with us, the anxiety that you have, the bankruptcy. We all go through those things, may not be the same intensity, but a lot of times we see them as failures, but not recognizing that failure is part of the experience. What it teaches us is it shows us what we don't want in our lives.
Yeah, that's very true, Ernie.
It really do. If we face it properly, we come to it properly, it actually can be our friend. It can give us the understanding in life that we need to have. That's why failure has to be looked at so much differently than as you can't take that identity on as a failure, but as a gift, as learning, right?
Yeah. Innovation requires risk. It's the only way we're going to transform. So
I do agree. We will need to take a quick break. Kevin just shared a very powerful tool on top of the things that he shared with us. So he differentiated the deficit versus asset phase framing and gave us 3 tools. And I would like to repeat it: understand yourself, heal parts of yourself, and grow alongside others. When we return, we will dive deep into what Kevin Sunga is doing in the community today. We will be right back to the Leader's Edge.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leader's Edge. I'm Steve Steele with my co-host Ernie DeCumos, and today we have our special guest Kevin Sunga. We had a great time, Kevin. We're in our last segment now. As we were talking during break, how quick these things go by, and then sometimes we underestimate how much we have to say and can't get it all in. So you've done an amazing job, and thank you so much for sharing with us. I know there's been some intimate details that you shared with us, a little bit about your journey that has been so powerful, because I think it's so relatable, and we're so fearful oftentimes of sharing those bad parts or those bad experiences in our life, because we don't want to, but that's actually healing to us. That's when we share them. It actually becomes healing to us, as you were speaking to in the last segment.
Yeah.
But Kevin, we're in the third segment now. So take us, brother, where you are doing. What are you doing today, brother? What's going on?
I love it. This reminds me of like a Hot Ones interview. It's like that little plug-in. I was like, cameras
Minus
here,
the hot,
here.
the hot,
Yeah.
the spicy dips. Yes.
Well, let me start with something fun. So interestingly enough, I'm enjoying, like, we usually talk about work first, but let me talk about what's going on in my personal life and sort of
Yeah.
understanding yourself. So I actually did the Hot Ones challenge. So I bought the set.
Yes.
And I've tried them all. And
I have got to do this. I've got to do this.
Well, how was the bomb? Oh dear.
Oh my! It had like, it has no place for food. Like, it really is built for that. No offense to the bomb people if you're listening to this, but yeah, like it's it's intense. So Steve, when you come, like, yeah, if you want to try it,
I'll be there. I'll be there next week, brother. We can try it.
Yeah, please,
It'll
please.
be fun, wouldn't it? It'd be fun, wouldn't it?
I'll watch you. I'll watch you both. I'll watch you both.
Yeah. You could help just monitor us, make sure that we're not passing out.
Yes, yes, yes. I'll have milk. I'll have milk.
Yeah.
I'll need the milk.
Yeah. Oh well.
Well, please continue, Kevin.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I just wanted to lead with that because, like, love the show, and so we did that as it relates. But something that I'm really blessed with is I'm an officiant. I'm a minister, so I officiated a couple weddings. I'm actually due to
awesome
a wedding next week, and also for my cousin, I'm co-officiating with my cousin, and that my cousin is getting married is like a sister to me. So really excited to be part of her journey and make it memorable. And then also traveling to the Philippines in September for another wedding. So I don't know when you guys are going. Am I missing you?
Yes, November 24th is our travel.
Right, we'll be there then. We'll just miss you.
Yeah, just a little bit. Okay. All right. So that's what I'm doing. That's what the summer's looking like for myself. But what's going on in today? What I'm working on right now. So, as mentioned, like I oversee an urban forestry program. So urban forestry is expanding the tree canopy in urban areas, and especially in South Stockton, where there was a huge deficit, and especially with what happened to the city of Stockton cutting a lot of public works and maintaining trees, and with Stockton actually being one of the most air polluted regions nationally.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, as one of the worst environmental burdens in the nation. And so that's where our work really leans on. And something really exciting for us is, strengthening those partnerships with the city to be one of their contractors and really help out the city in that way. And so we just hired new staff and we're acclimating them to the team. So the team is growing, and my work is really nurturing and taking care of our leaders and coaching them through their leadership journey right now.
I love that. Wow, I love that, Kevin. That's beautiful. That is so. And brother, you said it today. Lead with empathy. I'm really all about that, because we've been taught so many times that you hammer down on people, you hammer down, you get things done. We have to learn, especially with the new generation that's coming up. We need to learn to lead with empathy. And thank you for that. Thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome. And thanks for centering that. That's where it all comes from. Again, like the most underrated part of like being able to listen to staff, and listen to needs and be responsive to it. And I think that's one of my ethoses too, is if you take care of I take care of the people. I'm a very people-centered person.
Absolutely.
I integrate trauma-informed practices. I don't trauma lead. So I am mindful again of all these different, the adversity that people can face in their leadership journey. But yeah, we have to sit down and really, sit with them and really understand like where their path is, because we all have a different path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can quote Simon Sinek, and I've quoted this before, but it's one of my favorite quotes that he does. He says that leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is taking care of people in your charge. Yeah. And that's empathy, brother. Taking care of those people. That's empathy. Yeah.
Steve, you can bring Simon Sinek in this all you want, because he's part of our onboarding process at Little Manila.
Is that
Wow,
right? Love that.
really?
Love that.
Yeah. So we show his
Yeah,
video, and
absolutely.
the one video, and I'm sure you've come across it, is your why.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
Oh
what
Read
yeah,
the
the why. It's
book.
amazing.
Start with your why.
And the book, start with your why. Yep.
Yeah, totally love that book. I mean, Simon Sinek himself. I love how gentle his leadership style is,
Yeah.
and he does truly understand and reflect on every action that he's taken. One of the things that being a nonprofit as a leader, face is, and I love that you lead with empathy.
Yeah.
But we all know that working in a nonprofit organization with very little budget, how do
Volunteers.
yeah, it's most of the time it's volunteers, right?
Yeah.
How do you lead those individuals and have keep their
Good question.
enthusiasm to continue serving
Good question.
with the very little resources that is available to the organization?
Yeah. So what if I told you, so creativity, the centering C in the word is creativity. What if I told you that wasn't the case for our organization? That what we've implemented is something a little bit different than what, that you mentioned you traditionally seen. So that's where the concept of systemic change comes from. And so for us, what we've built is a thing called the school to social justice pipeline. That counters the school to prison pipeline for a lot of youth that just, that find themselves in incarceration. So for us, what we've developed is a 3-step leadership development program for our youth. To learn how to be advocates for the community and be that sustainable response. So it starts off in high school, learning sort of like the tenets of social justice, then moved into more of like college level, high school, like, senior level, where they get focused on like a health issue, environment issue. And then they could move on to organizer track, which is more advanced, which they work on like specific projects that us as staff is working on. Where their journey leads to could either be college, and people who've participated, 80% of them have gone to 4-year universities compared to 23%, or I think it was like 36% or so, comparatively. So how do we keep them engaged? Is that you kind of, you kind of help introduce this to them at a young age. And
Yes.
you acknowledge wherever they go. But a lot of the youth that we have trained now work for our organization. And we've grown from a staff of 3 in 2020 to now 52 in 2020.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
that's the response. And so that we're doing. So I think the thing is, catch them early, and also make it a quality job for them. We want to change that narrative. That's one of my biggest visions and goals for public service work, is that there's abundance in the work. And it should be valued differently, like teachers, those working in tech, because it is heart-centered work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perspective. Wow. They're turning deficit into assets.
Yeah.
I love that. You just definitely explained the teaching that you're focusing on, turning deficit to assets. It's a matter of perspective and seeing it in a different note that benefits the individuals. Thank you so much today, Kevin.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kevin.
You have this episode has just gone so fast. But I'm sure our listeners are also wondering, what are you currently working on top of what you shared with us as what your summer looks like, and how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, so I have started a grant writing consulting company. And so I know we were working a little bit. I was trying to figure out the business component of it. So I've got a couple partners on board. So if you are a nonprofit and you're exploring what grant writing looks like, and for me personally, I'm all about training to pass down this information in your community, so you won't be as reliant on us or any other contractors or consultants. Please find me. You're more than welcome to reach out to me. Please feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Name is Kevin Sunga. I kind of have curly hair in that picture, and I'm wearing green. There's multiple Kevin Sungas in LinkedIn. I've checked. And also feel free to follow me on social media. Instagram, it's KSoongs, KSOONGS. So yeah, I think those are the best, the two primary pathways if you want to connect more. I'm here for you, just how Ernie and Steve have built this amazing platform to share stories. I hope, that, you learn something from this and you practice ethical storytelling for yourself and for others. So thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to be here.
Been beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. And guys, next week, sneak peek on the Leader's Edge. This Thursday, well, I guess it's next Thursday, actually. We're going to have Payne Schoen, a recovering CPA. Now, I don't know what a recovering CPA is, but how he turned into a leadership coach. So join us to share the silver bullet, cracking the code to workplace engagement. I'm really looking forward to that. So don't miss this game-changing combo on building teams that thrive. And as always, Kevin, you were amazing today. Thank you so much for being here on the Leader's Edge. You just did a great job.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you, Ernie. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And thank you for everyone listening.
Yes, thank you again, Kevin. This has been a great radio show. We also wanted to say thank you to all of our listeners and friends, because without you, the Leader's Edge would not be possible.
Right.
We are excited to have you here, but we'll connect with you again next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone.